Alright, so let's get started. Hi, and welcome. My name is Tolan, and I have been learning to program on and off for a couple years, but I've really decided to throw myself into the adventure of learning to program for the last 3-4 months. I wanted to create this video and sort of the project that will follow based on 3 principles. One, when I was first starting to think about learning to program, I had a lot of false beliefs. And the first of those false beliefs was that I was someone who could not learn to program. That it wouldn't make sense for me to learn to code, whether that be in Ruby, Python, JavaScript, C++, name your favorite language, but I thought coding was something that I didn't have the intellectual or demographic capacity to do, even though I am, quote, a white male. So there is a certain level of privilege that I've experienced in my life, but I found it super frustrating that I just went through much of my childhood and recent adulthood believing that I couldn't learn to program. That was based on a series of false beliefs that I have now come to discharge or disregard, and so thus I've had the pleasure and the luxury of starting to learn to code. So I wanted to challenge that belief and sort of see and put some content out into the world, you know, given the fact that maybe other people believe that they can't code, or they have doubts about learning to code, or they're frustrated because they don't see a lot of people like them. The programmers that they do see tend to have 10 years of experience and were coding since they were 8 and are maybe billionaires like Zuckerberg or Gates or whoever. Name drop some other international entrepreneurs, let's say China and India. And so I wanted to sort of challenge that. And I wish that I had found content perhaps on the internet or the outernet. I don't know what the opposite of the internet is, grammatically speaking, but I wish that I had figured out that I could learn to code earlier, or I wish that I had had the fortitude or preclearance to like imagine that it might be possible. The second thing I want to do is I think learning to code, now that I've started down this journey, can be a sort of a lonely thing. You can be in a boot camp, you can be in a class, but again, I think there's a lot of value from interacting with others and having people that you can reach out to, or people that you can lean on, or people that you can just like see from afar and be like, oh my god, they're struggling too. This idea of like wanting to create community or create a resource or a platform or a place for people to connect is in no way new. I'd say most, if not all, of the ideas that I might discuss in this video and future videos are not new. In fact, there's an argument that no idea is new at this point in life. It's just like each idea is a remix of other ideas. Anyway, my point is like, I'm not trying to be super original. I'm just like, I feel super frustrated, and I guess in my frustration and to some degree desperation, I've just like wondered if I can find other people. So maybe I'm making these videos for a very selfish reason of I want to find other people who also think coding is somewhat hard and maybe look a little bit, if not very different from what I have or had in my head as people who might be a good fit for learning to code or becoming engineers or devs or entrepreneurs or whatever sort of means or end you might want to achieve with the idea of learning to code. Not that you should just have one means or goal, but whatever that is, I'm putting it out there that maybe we should have a place to explore and talk. The third thing is, I think unlike some of the other resources or communities or places, sites that I've seen and found on my journey to code, even before I started formally going down this path, I don't want you to feel like this should be your primary or only source of information. I don't think that we're going to solve all of your problems, whether that's all of your problems learning to code, not problems as in like problem sets, but problems as in like, fuck, excuse my language, fuck, I want to learn to code, I feel really behind, I don't know where to start, and so I like want to find one silver bullet. I'm going to sort of often poorly quote or cite a series of different thought leaders or people, authors that I've come across in my own life. And here I'd like to use the example of Ben Horowitz from blah, blah, blah venture capital firm, also from Netscape, and LoudCloud. But he sort of, in the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which I've recently started listening to on audiobook from Audible. Not that this is product placement, but in that book he talks sort of about this lesson that someone once told him, that we're not looking for a silver bullet, we're looking for lead bullets. Lead bullets meaning a material sort of that is a lot less valuable, but can achieve sort of the same outcome or a similar desired outcome to what you would have if you were to have a single bullet, meaning like a one magic fix of a solution. So anyway, in the book, or my understanding of the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, Ben is talking about using lead bullets to sort of create a defensive position or to fight someone, a competitor like Microsoft at the time. But I'm using this analogy in the way that I don't purport that this or really probably any other resource will help you learn to code in some way that it's magic, it's easy, like you don't have to do any work. That's just not how I understand and view the world. Instead, I sort of want you to think about a couple things, but one thing is like, do you find sort of the content and the approach and the style of what we're producing on this site or in this community, is it interesting to you? If it's not, maybe give it another try for a few days. If you come back a few more times, in a month, in a couple months. But if it's not working for you, don't waste your time here. That being said, if you're like me, you might have like the shiny object syndrome, where you're like a crow and you see a shiny object and you race over that object, and then you see another shiny object, you lose interest in sort of what you were doing or what you were examining before, and you go over here, and then another shiny object appears, and you just keep going from shiny object to shiny object to shiny object, and after a year you've like tried 12 things, but you never really gave any of those objects, shiny or otherwise, a valid chance to sort of sink in and learn. So again, the purpose of me saying this is I don't think this resource of this community, our approach is going to work for everyone. I don't actually know that it will work for anyone, including myself. But whether or not it works for you, feel free to explore other resources, discard our resource and sort of our approach entirely if that's what you want to do. But I would just challenge you to be aware of wanting to find a silver bullet or a bronze bullet or anything but lead bullets, i.e. hard work, and going from one approach to the other approach to the other approach without sort of taking the time to step back and reflect why you want to change. Why is this not working for you? So that's one thing. The second thing is I apologize in advance. The way that my brain works, or the way that I understand my brain currently works, is I'm not always super linear. So I'm not always super like planned out and organized. As you may know, when I verbally speak, I may say something like I just did about there are a few things that I want you to pay attention to. I'll go deep down in the weeds about one of them, and then I'll never address the other things. So I think what I'd ask for you is just sort of be patient with me and with us in the community, and then like give honest feedback. Like, do you need more written materials? Do you need more like notes? Do you need more exercises? Do you need me to spend a little bit more time thinking about what I'm gonna say rather than just saying it? Do you need more jokes? Do you need less jokes? I'm not saying that your comments will be immediately immersed into our approach and into our philosophy of this project, but I would say that we genuinely want to hear what you think, and we will genuinely consider what you're thinking, particularly if you say it in a way that's constructive rather than like, hey Tolan, you suck at life, like your project is terrible, go dig a hole and put your head in it. like, if you're really mean to us, then we're gonna treat your comment and your sort of input a little bit differently than if like, hey Tolan, I think the project and the way that you're talking about it is really interesting, but because you sort of tend to go off on a lot of different loops, I get a little bit lost. So just consider this one vote of maybe putting just the teensiest, weansiest little bit more of planning into some of your videos or articles, rather than just like have brain diarrhea. So anyway, that is the sort of the major things that I wanted to cover, which we're now going to pause the video, rewatch the video, sort of take out the major things and go over them again. If this is something that really bothers you, we'd love to know, but there's this like teaching philosophy, or this like learning philosophy that I think is really cool and find personally quite interesting, of like, tell someone what you're going to tell them, that thing, and then tell the group or the audience what you told them. And so you get this like sort of this framing, you get the exposure, and then you get the review, and that as like a cohort or a triangle can be super, super interesting. Anyway, so that's sort of just like the general philosophy of how we're thinking about this project at the current time. That's a lot of sort of evasive language, meaning like we don't want to commit to anything, but in summary, like, learning to code is hard, or at least it is for me. I didn't try to learn to code. I was afraid to learn to code. I was afraid to commit to it because the people that I imagined that were good at code, or worked in the space, or like in tech, or in the tech arms of more traditional industries, like, I thought they were really different than me, and that was frustrating. And I thought they were way smarter, and that was frustrating. I thought they had to be really good at math, and that was frustrating. But I had like the amalgamation, so like the grouping of a lot of false beliefs that sort of combined to make one huge misbelief, and like trying to be zen or like grateful. I'm glad of where I am today and like who I am, but it's a really interesting thought exercise to imagine, like, what if I had challenged the belief that I couldn't learn to code, 10 years earlier? Like, sort of what might it be able to contribute? Not that, life is about individual contribution. So anyway, we would love your feedback both on this video and in future videos. We'd love sort of interacting with you and other members of the community, whether that's like informally, if you want to like create an account, or like just leave comments in this video, whatever. I think this is going to be a super fun project, at least for me. I hope it may have meaning for other people, but if not, feel free to, troll me on the internet. Not really, because that sounds kind of terrible. But I'm pro feedback. So that's it for our first video, and we'll catch you again soon. Cheers.